Well, good Sunday morning to everyone. How are you folks doing? For me, it's bright and early, 7 o'clock. If anyone's listening west of me, then you're up really, really early. Hi, Sandra D. Good morning. So I am with out my faithful companion and compadre. Jeff was out chasing ghosts in prisons last night. Yeah, along with Rex and I think a group of others. So I think he was a little tired. Sandra, I think you may know this as well. I think that was a 10-hour drive, I think, up to Tennessee. So I bet he was tired. So how are you? How's everyone doing? Good to see everyone. Um, well, there's a couple of us watching, and that works for me. Top of the day to everybody. I'm just getting started here. Going to be a hot one in Denver today. 100 degrees, they say, close to it. Planet is changing, folks. Been an interesting week. Hey, Brian, good to see y'all. Mr. Smith, good to see you. Warrior Princess, hello. Going to get you on here in the next week or so. So, colleague, good morning. So, what a week our planet is going to have this week. I think we really are seeing on the geopolitical stage a real game changer. This president that we have is definitely shaking up the status quo. And I think it's something I was meditating on earlier this morning, was that look at what the consciousness change of one individual is having on a world. And here's the thing I want to point out. The world likes the system. The people moan, the people groan, but yet, when given a choice, the people will take tyrants over deliverers every time. It's something about us, our species, something that's wrong with our consciousness, something that I don't know. I don't know if it's a flaw in the way that we were made, but I have seen it myself. People enjoy being in prison, whether that prison is a theology, a dogma, personal perspective, a belief system, a core system, whatever you want to title it, is that it is within the nature of man to be dominated. And it's just true. The vast majority of us, maybe all of us, live in a prison cell that we have made by our own thoughts. And we abide in there. We like it in there. And we will kill you if you try to take us out of there. And as I have said many times in the past, this prison has no doors. It only has us. Doesn't have any guards, doesn't have any rules, doesn't have any penalties. And this is the best run prison of the universe. It's called the prison of humanity. So isn't that just a positive way to start? But it's reality. And that's what we have to begin to deal with, is sometimes the hardcore facts that we can come together and enjoy the energy that we give one another when we come together here. But everyone would have to agree that the world by far is lost. It's just crazy. I was talking to Jennifer, and, you know, I do not believe in reincarnation, and I can prove that reincarnation does not exist. It is nothing more than an idea and a theology at best. if the whole purpose of reincarnation is to somehow finish off something, somehow correct something, somehow you're supposed to, and there's so many cockamamie theories here that somehow or another we volunteer for this. That's crap. No one can testify to that. No one can validate that. Volunteer my ass. Going one time through this cycle is enough. But here's the fact. If there was supposedly this chain, this hierarchy that reincarnation is supposed to bring, then it's a dismal failure. History itself will condemn the thought of the religion, the ideology, the belief, because history shows mankind has evolved zero, folks, zero. In literally 10,000 years of recorded history, mankind, humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens, however you want to frame it, we have advanced zero. What's wrong here? So if this whole cockamamie thing of reincarnation is somehow supposed to betterment the individual, all I'm seeing is more and more confusion. I'm seeing people that are absolutely within their own realities and have no consciousness of anything other than their own reality. Go through an airport. You'll find out very quickly how bad it truly is. I mean, we just got to begin to get honest here. And the frou-frou and the spiritualist movement and the awakening movement, whatever you want to call it, is nothing more than a new religion, adapting an old one. And I can tell you the concepts and the precepts of spiritualism, metaphysics, is as ancient as the Bible itself, older. So again, validating my point that I made literally 3 minutes ago, humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens, have advanced zero. We've made no progress. We've made no advancements. Not even the technology is apparently that new. Yeah, serious stuff. So I don't buy reincarnation. I think that number one, I'm a pragmatist. And how I look at things is this, that what is the definition of insanity? Does anyone know the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And again, history will simply show you that in the annals of man's exploits, we've changed zero. Now, I don't know what that's saying. I don't know if it's saying that we're incapable. I don't know if it's saying that literally you have one time through, and that's what I do believe. I believe you're only here one time. I think that if the rite of birth passage has any significance, whether it be in this temporal plane or the next ones to come, then it would simply say that the birth process is of no consequence. I disagree with that. I've studied it medically, married to a nurse, has delivered more babies than anyone in this chat room. So, you see, I find that to be, it's a bonding of the spirit to the body, to consciousness. And that's unique. So, I'm just reading it. I just tell it like it is, folks. I think at some point in time, we have to begin to address what is not working. Why is it not working? So I have, how many of you, and give me 1 second here, have heard of panspermia? There's something here onto this. And to those of you who have, I'd be curious to see your comments. But to those of you who have not heard of panspermia, it is the theory that life on Earth originated from microorganisms or chemical precursors of life present in outer space and able to initiate life on reaching a suitable environment. Now, I contend that as you continue to look at the evidence, give me 1 second here, please. So what happens when you're driving the bus? That if you were to simply take any one of us, anyone, I'll pick someone out here. I saw Brian in here and Sue. So let's just take, and Sean. So we're going to take the four of us and everything in our environment that we have built and modified to counter the environment that we are born into. You see, there is a theory that says Earth is actually very hostile to humans. Now, think about this. I'm going to take away your home. I'm going to take away all your money. I'm going to take away all your plumbing. I'm going to take away electricity. All I'm going to give you is your two hands, your feet. I'm not even going to clothe you. And we're going to put you out there in the middle of the savannah. How long do you think you or anyone else will survive? I'll just kind of wait here and see, since I'm solo today. We're talking about credit cards. Well, I guess I should just go. Well, that's interesting. Well, I guess maybe some people need to find out a better interest rate on a credit card. I find that to be interesting conversation in the chat room. But hey, each of us have our own. I think the fact of the matter is, and I'll just be very candid with you, you would not survive probably more than within 2 or 3 days at the most. Most human beings right now do not have the coping skills of basic survival. It's well known, and I can tell you, I've worked in enough federal agencies there's already plans in place. We know that when the interruption to the distribution systems, transportation, fuel, those become interrupted, then the chain begins to collapse very quickly. Within 3 days, all the grocery stores no longer have any food. 95% of all American homes have no more than, at best, a 2 or 3 day supply. They may have other type of staples, but it'd be very hard on life sustaining. Within 3 days, society as we know it would be collapsed. There's a book called, and you really should read it, called 1 Minute After. And that is after the collapse happens. And they have done this enough in studies. I can tell you, our government knows this, that within 3 days, there will be total anarchy. In the big cities, it will be a living hell. And that's why they're trying to get people into cities, drive them out of the rural areas, put them in concentrated urban environments. But so here's the reality, getting back to the point. This planet, in its basic structure, is hostile to our species. Think about this. Right now on your body, I'll put it this way. If you live long enough, eventually your body will begin to consume itself. Right now, on our bodies are staph germs of many different types that immediately, when the protection, the barrier that we have, is that called your immune system, begins to break down, your body begins to feed upon itself. The very viruses, the very bacterium of this planet begins to consume you. That ain't very conducive to a long life. Let's just go on and take this a step further. Look at the sun. The sun, in its very natural way, is harmful to our bodies. The very space itself, the energy it generates off of it, is harmful to our bodies. I mean, all of us who were the younger ones that back in the day, and they still do it today, sunbathing. I mean, isn't that the craziest thing? Sunbathing. We get ourselves out there. We want to put on chemicals to protect us from the harmful aspects of our sun. Again, I'm trying to bring up to the point that we, as a species, this planet is a very hostile environment. So when you think about panspermia, and that's what we're dealing with here, that deals with the fact that there was no God, no mythical, unseen God. You see, that's why the shirt says polytheism. Why have just one imaginary friend? That the very component of life, now if you want to talk about a creator, the very component of way to create life would to merely set the basic building blocks in place and then allow the building blocks to create what they will create. Puts it back on a whole different perspective, doesn't it? So the thought is this, and allow me a second here, as I want to pull this up so it brings it into reference. Give me 1 second here. As he says, I can do the Jeopardy song. Of course, when you want the photo to come up, there it goes. So let me pull this up. Maybe we can talk about this. So here's the idea. Now, I've done a story on this. I know Claudia and I have talked about this, that every day, trillions of viruses from space, which would be outer space, falls on our planet every day. Trillions of them. That in itself is interesting. And then when you begin to think about the molecules, the chemicals, everything else that's involved in our atmosphere, something falling through, who knows, maybe it's even on cosmic rays, I don't know, that would help in itself to generate life. Another concept is that the carriers of life, comets, asteroids, we validated this. Microbes do live on them. And so if microbes live on them, that then begins to say, well, then it's a very good possibility that the seeding of the cosmos is that this is done. We're so convinced that we have the right formula. You know, no matter what your point of view is of how we got here, the fact is that we're here. And again, I just simply say that history shows we're not advancing. I believe there's good empirical evidence that shows that we're actually degressing. I think we've reached our pinnacle, and I think we're seeing the rapid decline. So, panspermia. Now, we've had extinction events. We have had 5 extinction events on this planet. It is said that we are in the 6th extinction right now. Scientists, theologians, philosophers cannot answer why, can't explain the purpose. But this planet has gone through what I would call a cleansing 5 different times. Now, the question becomes, how did life reorient itself again? How did it originate back? I mean, you have something as catastrophic as an asteroid, comet hitting the planet, and we know that this has happened. And when you begin to sterilize a larger portion of the environment, then the question comes, how did those components reassemble themselves? How did they, I guess, regenerate themselves? Now, the easy out is saying, well, it was because of God. Well, again, show me God. That's all I'm asking. I've yet to see him. So this does happen. This happens very often. So what happens here? Are these the cedars of life? Does panspermia have foundation? I think it does. I think it has great foundation. And it goes so far as to also put that if the theory is correct, and it's no different than any other theory of how this all started, that planets. Now, think about this. If Mars had an atmosphere, it would be habitable. In fact, the sun would be more of a friendly to our species than here on Earth. And if you think about Tiamat, the one that is in the asteroid belt, I mean, I think my frustration so often in talking with people is that we're so one-dimensional in our views. No one stops and considers that asteroid belt. And we'll validate this. I'm going to have Dr. Richard Allen Miller on the Friday the 22nd. You're going to love it. We're going to be talking about this. Our memories don't go back that far. That's just a fact. We don't have memories, records of this other world that existed. Something happened. I contend whatever was in the asteroid belt, that is our perfect origin. If we were to have been originators of this solar system, that position of a body would be perfect for us. The sun wouldn't be harsh. It would be much more dampened. I think we would probably have been quite surprised. We know that it would have been about the same size of Mars, it's estimated. And what if? What if everything originated, all of the pantheon, all of the theisms of all religions? You know, I think the one that has more sense to me than anything else are the Hindus. I believe that their history, I think, very accurately describes many different races, species, far superior to us. And I think that this was their habitat. I think we are refugees on this planet. And we're desperate for a God. We're desperate for some sort of identity. And that's just my take. It's not your normal Sunday morning. It's, again, take our friend Jeff, that, going to Bushy State Prison there in Tennessee with Rex and the other group. I think there was they do this several times a year when they open it up. So that we want to know, what do the spirits know? I mean, if they're spirits and they're still here, see, that doesn't make sense to me, because I don't think we originated from here. Now, I know the story that everyone looks to and refers to. There never was a garden. Never was. And I often tell people, if you want to take the story literally, which actually came from the Chaldeans, didn't come from the Hebrews, it came from the Chaldeans. Read the Epic of Gilgamesh, and that's where your creation story in Genesis comes from. So if you take the literal point that God created a human from the earth, right? That man was black. It's the only way he could have been. It was black. I lived in St. Louis, and people around there know around where the Missouri and Mississippi come in. You also have the Merrimack. And we have what we call these river bottoms. That is the best soil to grow. That's why farmers grow it there, even knowing that it's in the floodplain. Why? Because it's rich, it's fertile, and it is black as the ace of spades. So, where did the white people come from? If you say that you believe in that theory, then the only explanation is we've had dramatic gene mutation. And how do you get gene mutation? By cosmic rays, particles, damaging the DNA structure that causes the anomalies, the mutations. Every one of us are a mutation of our ancestors. Children being born today are even going to be much more impacted. I did a video on Friday just on the flying aspect of it. So, well, Gary, if Noah was bright white, then what happened to all the original Adamites? I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't know where the story is. Listen, I know this. See this book here? Yeah, I use this as a study book. It's one of the best ones. I got several like this. Here's Noah. Here's the first story of Noah. How could the Bible story of Noah be the right story when the original story was in the first writings of humans? This predated that story by 1,500 years. We got to deal with facts. And that's my contention. So much of what we believe isn't so much truth as the fact that we wanted to believe that it's truth. And we'll go to great steps to try to. It always amazes me now. I'm no longer a Christian. I've disavowed that religion. But I stand sometimes in awe because I see all these stories of how they're trying to prove the Bible true. And I go, I don't see the Jews doing that with the Torah. I don't see the Muslims doing it with the Quran. I don't see the Hindus doing it with the Vedic. And why do you have to try to prove so hard that something is true if it wasn't true? So, I'm on a writing this book that I am writing. You begin to step back, and when you look at the insanity of our species, our belief systems, we believe in things that we cannot prove, we cannot see, we cannot taste, we cannot feel, yet we will put our lives on the line saying that it's true. And yet we condemn those who come and challenge those ideas and say, show me the beef. Where is the proof? When I was in my heyday in my religion, the thing that we always went about saying was that, I have faith. I don't need proof. I have faith. So you're still saying you're a fool. Faith without evidence is foolish. I mean, you can say you have faith in anything, doesn't mean it exists. I have a lot of people who write me and trying to break this God spell over their lives. And the number one single thing that I spend, and I have over 1,000 emails, and it's just backed up, that people want to be free from this fear of this concept of hell. And as I try to show them all the time, until the Christian church came along, there was no hell. The Native Americans here, the great tribes of the nations of North America, when the white man came with his poison of his tongue, the poison of his words, the poison of his thoughts, as those armies began to encroach on the sacred lands, they tried to tell the people, well, if you don't obey, you're going to go to hell, because they had the Baptist preachers there with them. They were embedded, oddly enough, with the cavalry. And the Indians kept saying, what do you mean, hell? When we die, our spirits are with the great spirit of the sky. You see, white men, our theologies are poison. We entrap and enslave people here in hopes to entrap and enslave them after the life. And you know what they're going to find? I'm convinced of this. It's nothing what any of us have expected. I think it's going to be far more grander than any of us can imagine. Just a fact. So that's where I'm at. And it's sad to see the condition of our species today. I wish I could be more positive on this. But at some point in time, if you have moldy bread, no matter how much you pick the mold off of it, it's still moldy bread. And I think that that's what's happened to us. I think we have become so constrictive in our thought processes that the indoctrination, particularly no matter where you are in the world, but if you're typically in the West or an industrialized country, the indoctrination of God, country, and family is very well here. Now, that's beginning to disintegrate. And what I see today is quite fascinating. Bringing a little politics into this on Sunday morning. That's always fun. Let's get another cup of coffee on this one. So the stories coming out of Canada, of the G7. And I admire Trump. Man's got brass balls, and he is upsetting the tables. Boy, if I could use a metaphor, I would use the story of Jesus and the temple turning over the tables. This is exactly what Trump is doing. He is literally turning the tables upside down on the world elite. They now know that he can't be bought. And that's the thing about Obama. Obama could be bought and was. Most politicians are bought. That's why they're politicians. When you vote here, remember, you're just voting for a thief. If you're, this is the thing I challenge any politician who wants to come on to this show, any politician running in Denver, governor or whatever, is the fact that if you are truly for the people, then you wouldn't take a salary. You would take no benefits for yourself. You would serve as a statesman. And your time would be donated to the great nation. We don't have that anymore. That's why you have politicians wanting to run for office. Most of them are not qualified to do the job, but it doesn't matter because it's not really a job. So, getting back to Trump, think about what's happening in the world, and this is going to have huge implications, I think, on the geopolitical world scene. So, as the story goes, apparently the other 6 had ganged together and were plotting how they were going to confront Trump. Now, as Air Force One, Marine One, lands at this private estate, they were huddled in a room, and the helicopter was so loud they couldn't continue the meeting. And as the stories are now and the pictures are being released, they apparently had this little powwow where they had a fire at night and, had the drinks and everything else. Well, just became a 6-on-1 confrontation. And it apparently got pretty heated. 6 against 1. 6 world leaders against Trump. And the pictures that are coming out, Merkel apparently thought that she was going to give him a dress down. Didn't work. Trudeau anyway. The fact is that now the elite, the world now sees that they have an individual who can't be bought. Folks, we haven't seen this. I dare say, I'm trying to go back on history and going back to another leader who could not be bought. Now, some could say the monarchy, but I'm trying to think in even postmodern time. So we're seeing something that we've never seen before, and which leads to this whole thing, panspermia. Is it possible that we are, in fact, refugees to this planet, that we originated somewhere else? That, in fact, that there are other species that we interpret them to be as gods? And are we maybe, in fact, our species, I said that we haven't progressed in nearly 10,000 years. I was speaking to a group on a conference call about this very subject, that the fact that when you look at what the Sumerians did, their culture, how their society worked, and how it was organized is exactly what we're doing today. Exactly. Virtually no modifications, no changes. If anything, I guess the thing that I've seen that what humanity has done is enslaved itself even more. Instead of freeing itself, we tend to find ideologies, theologies, political views, etc., that seem to harm us more than help us. I did a video on the suicide. By the way, YouTube didn't like that. In fact, it had a manual review. I like how I got the 3 thumbs down. That means I'm doing my best. That's a good thing. I look at them now, appreciate the thumbs up, but the thumbs down, that tells me that I'm renting free space in your head. And I'll be there for the rest of your life, living rent-free in your penthouse. But anyway, apparently, even with the elites, the subject of suicide is very taboo. They don't like that. Isn't that odd? How you have someone who says that they believe in the freedom of thought and the expression of such, but yet when you cross the line of such subjects as taboo to our society as suicide, and all I simply ask the question, is suicide a sin, or do we have the right? And I contend we have the right. I contend as well that we have lost the knowledge of how to properly depart. I believe that there is a knowledge that existed. And listen, I'll pick up something that people will refer to. It's written in your Bible. Jacob, after he had blessed his sons, says that he went into his tent, got into his bed, rolled up the covers, and gave up the ghost, gave up his spirit. I think Abraham did the same thing. I think it was a known technique. Listen, no matter how you look at it, eventually suicide will take you. And I'm going to explain how suicide is inevitable. We take suicide as the actions of one person deciding to rid this body and free their spirit. And we, as a society, find that to be sad. I've seen all the debates, seen all the questions, and it can be. But again, I think it's because we lack full perspective. But let's say that you go on to live and to live. Eventually, your body is going to turn on you. Now, if you identify yourself with your body is, in fact, committing suicide. It's that expression that says that if a schizophrenic decides to commit suicide, isn't that a hostage situation? Now, there are ways that people die. I mean, tragic accidents, etc. But again, it's one of those things. Here we are supposing to be this advanced species of societies, the days of where we're, liberalism, you're supposed to be all inclusive, tolerant of all beliefs, except some beliefs or some topics. Yeah. Well, I tell you, this is not your normal Sunday morning. And Jeff, I'm sure will be back next week. I think next Sunday is it Father's Day or is it the week after? Anyway, summertime is about here. So we're going to be suffering, I think, up here in the northern hemispheres. I can't wait to see that sun starting heading south. So what a day, eh? It's been a good one. And, if I've stepped on a few toes, well, put some ice on it. It'll be all right. We all need our toes stepped on, even myself. I try to immerse myself into as much controversial knowledge. And I have read some wild stuff out there, still reading. But I think that it makes us much more rounded in our approach. And I told someone this the other day. I said, if this whole thing of someone said, so, well, with reincarnation, you don't have a choice. I said, time out. I said, I'll assure you this, that as I go out and I step through that birth portal, because it's the death portal we're born into. You do realize that, right? Each and every one of us are born into death. We're not born into life. That's crap. That's a bunch of hocus pocus, nonsense. We are born into death. The first breath you take is the first breath to your death. It's just the way it is. And I choose to see that when we find death is actually birth. I challenge anybody on the other side to tell me I'm going to go back. This is what I'm going to give them. Yeah. Because ain't going to happen. Let me tell you, folks, and I'm serious about this. When you get it into your heads, and it gets in here, that you are the most superior creation there is. Any of you that are dealing with spirits that are messing with you or whatever, you challenge them to show them their sovereignty. They have not gone through the birthright. That makes us unique. And when we pass through the other side, I dare any spirit. You see, that's why God could never judge man, because God never went through the rite of birth. That's why they had to cook up the cockamamie story about, a 12-year-old virgin being impregnated by some unseen deity. We would call that rape, but I digress. Because there's no other way that makes them equal to us. And when our species gets that through, that we don't have to be praying to any imaginary god or gods. Until those gods go through the rite of birth passage, they're not equal to us. And that's just my 2 cents worth. So there. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, I'm going to cut this one short. Elemental or IVF, Wayne? Or am I reading that? I'm sorry, I'm trying to read and drive at the same time. Not a good thing to do. Folks, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I know that it gets, as Jeff would say, this is not your normal Sunday morning. This is not your church service. This is where, we're going to expand, and I will, on the thoughts that, have been so taboo, so, forbidden. Knowledge, true knowledge, is not bigotry. It's not racist. It's not divisive. True knowledge does not know good or evil. It's knowledge. It's what you do with it, whether you're going to make it good or evil. And I think that choice goes through even as we transcend to the other side. I do that. So, folks, I hope it was been fun. I do appreciate every one of you. I do. And, just a passionate guy. It's that great line in the movie, The Big Chill, where, who's the guy who played the dude that was on the drugs, drove the Porsche? Well, anyway, as the conversation and all of them were sitting there, it was a good movie. And he just says, I'm trying to keep the conversation lively. So lively it is. All right, tomorrow night, got Dr. Claudia Albers on. We're going to be getting into some really good topics. The one I asked her to look into as well is the cosmic rays. I think we really need to have more discussions on these particles that are hitting us, and they're hitting us, and they're increasing. And I think, again, if you don't believe in evolution, that's fine. Panspermia doesn't either, because panspermia rebukes Darwinism, because what it says that what's coming from outer space is having more influence on the development of all life on this planet. That's potentially where we see the freak mutations or where we see the jump in species evolution. Something happens that can't be explained. No one has thoroughly vetted out the idea that if in fact trillions of viruses fall from outer space each day, what would be the potential effect on the biological forms on this planet that would be potentially from a virus bonding to either RNA or DNA? And if such a bonding can take place, then the question becomes, if you have increased heavy particles coming in, and as it hits our DNA, it destroys that DNA. Is that where we could be potentially seeing mutations? Has this cycle happened before? I mean, that's a question I'm looking at right now. I have in my notes. Could that have been part of the cause of one of the 5 great extinction events? I don't know. Lots to think on here. All right, so see y'all tomorrow night. It will be fun. And have yourself a good week. Living up here in the northern hemispheres, if it's hot, keep cool. If you're down in the southern hemisphere, well, I hope it's not too cold. Send some of it up north here. All right, folks, be good. Thank you, Valerie. Yes. Well, the shirt is expressive of what I feel. I mean, seriously, if you're going to believe in one imaginary friend, bring them all in. But I do set rules, and I do believe that there's spirits, let me tell you. But again, once you start putting your foot down and you demand that they show you their qualifications, if they've never been born, folks, they're not superior to you. It's a fact. We got to retune our thinking. You go through that birth process, you're going to get a trophy. We just haven't realized that someone's been collecting our trophies. All right. Appreciate you all. See you again. Have a great day. All right, folks. Bye-bye.